This video information dissemination broadcast is not a video about religion. I repeat, this is not a religious video information broadcast in the way that is commonly understood as religion, with priests, churches, and their stupid pagan rites and rituals. Before embarking any further upon viewing this video, you must separate totally in your mind the concept of God, the Supreme Lord, guardian of divinity, from all forms of organized religion and superstitious nonsense, and view this video with an open mind and an active heart, without any preconceived ideas. The Torah, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, which have been combined into the Bible, as well as the Quran, are not religious books either. They are guides sent from the Lord, the guardian of divinity, the king and ruler of the universe, to tell you what you have to do and the rules you have to follow in order to be able to be taught how you have to be, so that you can eventually be allowed to go home, to your real home. Blessed is he who has crucified the world, and the world not him. Now, this is a saying attributed to Yeshua in the Gospel of Thomas, a Gnostic text, considered heresy, actually, blasphemy. It's, at the very least, it's non-canonical by mainstream Christianity. Blessed is he who has crucified the world, and the world not him, signifies the idea that true spiritual enlightenment comes from detaching oneself from worldly desires and attachments, essentially crucifying the world within oneself, rather than being controlled by it. As is so often the case, that many people have been deluded into thinking that this material realm is their true home. Well, is it? Do you feel at home in this world, controlled by your five senses, constantly in a tumultuous state of anxiety? I mean, I think that's accurate to say for most people in this day and age. Now, your true home, and I'm going to kind of leverage some thoughts from philosophy and contemporary spiritual technology, but your true home, your true citadel of consciousness, your true plateau of power is within the unperturbed mind, at home within the bliss consciousness of Atman, as the Hindus call your true eternal energetic self. Those controlled by the appetites, their senses, without any kind of understanding or connection to their spirit, their reason, their higher self, those constantly in tumultuousness of thoughts and feelings on the sea of emotions. When Yeshua calmed the storms, this is symbolic. He was able to calm the tumultuous emotions and feelings of his flock, of his disciples. Your inner Christ, when your consciousness is seated within the Christ consciousness, you are the king of your universe. Awareness, reason, spirit, all are at the top of the pyramid. Over the base of the pyramid, appetites, thoughts, feelings, and a reality controlled by your sense appetites. You will be at the base of the pyramid. You will never achieve the single eye, and your whole body be full of light as a result. But Christianity was created by the Apostle Paul, by and large, along with the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD by a pagan Roman emperor. Paul. The spouter of lies, the man of lying, the scoffer, the proselytizer of the crucified Christ, of the crucifixion implants, the progenitor of the crucifixion implants, of the external savior program. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 6, where it discusses Sankhya Yoga, and yoga, keep in mind, is a rather Sanskrit term to yoke, of union. I have to get away from referring to the spiritual technology of India as Hindus and Hinduism, as I learned in a video information dissemination broadcast from Shiva Kailash yesterday, where he had a guest on who talked about Hindu was a disparaging term put forth by the British. But we are going to aspire to clean up my inner mental temple and refer to the religion of Hinduism, or the spiritual technologies rather, as the Vedic technologies. My guru, Sadhguru, is not a Hindu priest in that sense. He is a Vedic priest. And within the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 1, it says, "Blessed Lord has said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is the renounced order of life. And he or she is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, union, or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi, one who is yoked, one who is in union with the divine, unless they renounce the desire for sense gratification. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, to union with the divine, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person is said to have attained to yoga, to union, when having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. Blessed is he who has crucified the world, and the world not crucified him. It's derived from the Bible, from the biblical verse, Galatians chapter 6, I believe it's verse 14, which essentially means that the true Christian, Christ one who is in Christ consciousness, should not be influenced or controlled by worldly values, but instead their focus should be on the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. And this is understood in an allegorical sense, a metaphorical sense, as you have crucified your worldly ego, your worldly desires. Now, granted, the sense world is here for you to explore as much as you like. All is from God. This is not to totally disparage the mind or the sense world. But if you can see behind me, I have a little photo of the five koshas in Vedic spiritual technology. Almost said Hindu. But we have this sheath of consciousness. And the outer sheath of the physical realm, which is denoted with this color red, which is also in an inverse correlation, the same as your Muladhara, your root chakra, which is associated with the color red. Red consciousness, red is a vibrating, a lower vibrating energy consciousness. It is where matter exists. And most people, I would say about 85% of people, we're trying to get it to the 50% mark where we can get the balance, rather, evened out of people living in this bliss consciousness and this inner kosha, the highest bliss kosha, which is conterminous in an inverse fashion with your crown chakra, sahasrara. But most people are existing in this physical layer of consciousness. But as you begin to separate yourself from gross physical matter, enter into the energies of the solar plexus, you begin to develop your worldly ego. And as long as you are at that level of worldly ego, you will suffer the ups and downs, the tumultuousness of this carnal playground. But as your heart expands, you begin to establish heart-mind coherence. You begin to open up this heart center and enter into this higher level of the temple, inner sanctum of the temple. The heart energies begin to flow. Your throat chakra begins to open. You begin to establish yourself in this inner kosha. And then ultimately, your crown awareness will blossom. And you have crucified the world at that point. And isn't this amazing that we have this Vedic technology mirroring and essentially saying the same thing as what the Christ was saying, Yeshua, who came to fulfill the law of allowing, to allow people to live more abundantly. When you are in bliss consciousness, bliss awareness, you have crucified the world. All right? Rejecting worldly priorities and desires in favor of your faith in your inner Christ. Faith is the power of the Magi. Optimism, flowing from your bliss consciousness, not conforming to worldly standards or seeking validation from this world. Because there is no such thing in the entire cosmos as equality. Because 85% of the people are not equal to those living in bliss consciousness, in yoga, in union with the Atman, the inner divine. It's just simply reality. All of this sort of doctrine about if a person who is a murderer, a compulsive murderer, or living in lower vibration consciousness their entire life, and then at the end of their life they ask Jesus for forgiveness, they're going to the same heaven. Now this is allegorical, I'm speaking. You can't exist. Quantum justice will keep you at that level of vibration. If you have lived your life in this lower vibration consciousness, you will not be going to the same heaven. You are not equal to that person who has lived in bliss consciousness their entire life, who has mastered all the five sheath, the koshas of consciousness, who dwells within the inner, the highest blissful level of consciousness, and has essentially crucified the world in that bliss consciousness, dedicated to living a life dedicated to God's will. So there's no such thing as in the entire cosmos as equality. Everyone is not equal because everyone is not in the same guardianship of divinity, in the same level of consciousness. There is instead a hierarchy, and this is not something that is seen as tyrannical. It's not based on your birth, your special birth, your riches that you have, or the power of the stronger from the physical kosha. But this is a sacred authority sanctioned by the nature of things, that the universe is mental, that all is mind. There is a hierarchy of mind, and there is only one royalty, one aristocracy, that of intelligence. And this is the 17th axiom in the Base de la Philosophie Cosmique. This alone, understanding this levels of consciousness, these sheaths of consciousness, understanding this and learning where you dwell within, this alone can lead to cosmic equilibrium and happiness. And yoga is the art of finding peace by removing obstacles to the inner self, to the Atman, to the bliss consciousness. Learning how to get from consciousness and attention focused solely on the physical kosha, the outer layer of consciousness, which this system is conterminous also with Carlos Castaneda's assemblage points, where your focus dwells, where your energy tends to gravitate. These assemblage points, but where your focus is. If you are constantly in a state of optimism, faith, and bliss, that is the kingdom of heaven, and all will flow. All will evolve. The yogi who has satisfied by knowledge and discrimination and has conquered all of their senses, mastered the senses, the illusion of the senses, remains undisturbed in all circumstances. They see everything, dirt, stones, and gold, as the same. So abiding within the self of the Atman, the divine source of consciousness within each of us, all of the human race, is beyond the three gunas, the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas, these forces of creation, the rhythm of creation, sustainment and destruction. As it has no origin and end, its main characteristics are vigilance and support to everything with any detachment. You have compassion for those lost to the world of physicality. That is all the level that their consciousness goes to. And in the Upanishads, Atman, your bliss consciousness, is the subject which persists throughout the changes. The common factor in the states of waking, dream, sleep, death, rebirth, and final deliverance. He who is within this bliss consciousness is truly a guardian of divinity. Namaste, namaskaram.